In your lunch. On behalf of the Reach Out and Read Wisconsin team, we appreciate your commitment so much to supporting families with young children. I just have a few housekeeping reminders. Please use that chat room to ask questions, share comments during the presentation. We'll respond as time permits. After Dr. Molaska's presentation, we're going to award 3 gift cards, so stay tuned. And then don't forget to complete our survey for feedback. We are rolling back out the Lunch and Learn webinars, and we really want to make sure we are serving your needs. So here's our introduction to our great, awesome, wonderful Dr. Wendy Molaska. She's going to be doing a special presentation. It's an encore of our newborns and special populations presentation back at our annual meeting. She is the owner and physician at Dedicated Family Care, a direct primary care clinic. She completed her undergraduate degree and medical school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She has been a dedicated advocate for Reach Out and Read since her residency at the University of Minnesota program at North Memorial Clinic, where she played a pivotal role in establishing Reach Out and Read programs at every clinic she worked at. And in 2008, she initiated a Reach Out and Read program in Platteville, Wisconsin, soon after joining our advisory council. In addition to her wonderful work with Reach Out and Read, Dr. Molaska has served on the board of directors for the Wisconsin Medical Society, was elected president-elect in 2021, contributes to their Justice, Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force, and still has time to serve on the Wisconsin Council of Immunization Practices through the Wisconsin Department of Health Services. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Wendy Molaska.
Dang. Thanks, Dee Dee. That was more than enough about me. So I have the great pleasure of being here. And yes, I have enjoyed being a part of Reach Out and Read since my residency. And yeah, that was way before 2008, but we won't actually talk dates. So yeah, strong advocate for Reach Out and Read. I did this talk at our annual meeting last year and was asked to do it again. But at the annual meeting, they gave me an hour and now they're giving me like 20 minutes. So buckle up. Here we go. Couple of housekeeping things. You've heard some of this. You're all on mute, but feel free to turn your cameras on. Use the chat box for any questions. You can also use the react button. As I get to the end, we'll start reading off questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions. My current clinic, we do participate in Reach Out and Read as well, so have a lot of experience doing this. We are recording this, so hopefully I won't screw up too badly. And then again, fill out those emails and resources at the end. Try not to focus as much on the slides as kind of listening to what I say, because we will also provide all of these slides and there is a ton of information. So I hate when people get stuck just reading the slides. So we're going to go really quickly through these. We're going to focus mainly on the slides that have pictures because they're prettier and more fun, but you will get all of the information. So Reach Out and Read. We're now starting at birth instead of at 6 months. And I give this patient really big kudos. I mean, she just delivered this baby. You can see her sitting in her hospital bed reading her book. So yeah, basically the idea is that we start at newborn checks in our clinics, not necessarily right away in the hospital, but talking about that early language development for kiddos, and really that it's really this bonding experience. So for those newborn checks, usually we're doing sometimes a 2-day or 2-week check in clinic, and then perhaps a 1-month check. What we're really emphasizing to the parents at this point, aside from making sure that they're getting their own sleep, is basically just starting to use books and language as they are kind of their kids' first teachers. Reach Out and Read helps provide those books to help the parents enjoy those, but things look different. And so as a family practice physician, I get the privilege of saying that I do womb to tomb medicine. And so therefore I know if my patients are delivering, potentially their first baby, and what that looks like in terms of, hey, we're reading while we're nursing or doing bottles or changing diapers or singing. But sometimes then when you have that second baby, you have that toddler. And so it looks very different as you're nursing and trying to entertain a toddler. And so books can become an important part of all of that for both of them. And sometimes it's just a few minutes, and that's okay. This is one of my favorite pictures. Oh my gosh. Mom was seeing me for her 6 week postpartum visit. So we were off in the exam room. We had already been seeing the little guy here for his newborn check and then his 2 week check and his 1 month check. And so mom and dad had been coming in. He'd already been getting his books from Reach Out and Read. And we come out of mom's visit from the exam room. And this is what I find in the waiting room is dad and baby like just grabbing one of the books in the waiting room and sharing that. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. You're doing Reach Out and Read it. It's just so beautiful. And oh my gosh. So yeah, basically, this dad has already picked up on the importance of, yeah, those books and stuff. He's in there making little bunny noises and stuff. And it was such a precious moment, but it was exactly what Reach Out and Read is meant to be. And a lot of that, especially in this newborn time period, having been there myself with my kids, is like really just focusing on kind of that connection and the bonding and stuff and using books to help with that because that newborn period is really hard because nobody's getting any sleep. um 2 month checkup again, providing books, talking about interactions. I like this picture in that grandpa, I think, threw his back out and was on the floor. And so he felt more comfortable laying on the floor. But hey, I can still share a book with my child because we can both just lay here and look at books together. And so I think one of the things that I try and emphasize is that especially again with that newborn period and so much adjustment happening at home is that reading isn't necessarily just meant to be sitting and reading. It's again about those interactions and the bonding and finding ways to incorporate that into the day. And so maybe some of that is, oh, you also need to do tummy time with your kids, so maybe they're on their tummy and you're holding the book kind of in front of them as they're trying to lift their head up and look at the book. And so providing some of those different options for parents so that they don't have stuck in their head that, reading is just, sitting, kid on lap, and, reading what's on the page. Whoops, sorry. And then as we go along and we're starting to get the children that are slightly older and parents are looking now at 2 months and 4 months that the infants are starting to develop schedules and so forth, really trying to integrate books and reading into the daily life. And so really talking about things like when are good times to do this. And so sometimes it's before bed. So everybody gets their pacifier and gets in the chair and we share a book before bed or before naps. This helps. I always tell parents, establishing these routines really early on helps as the child becomes a toddler and becomes older so that these are already ingrained that, hey, before bed, we wind down with books and so forth. Um, Using a lot of facial expressions. I always tell parents, let your inner child out as you're doing these books in terms of, making the little, the different voices for the different characters or the big fat elephant walking into the room. And that was one of my, my husband always teases me that I'm kind of the wet blanket in our relationship. But reading to my kids was the one way that I got to really, let my inner child out. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to, yeah, use different voices and providing guidance about, also allowing kids to explore the books themselves, and especially at like the 4 month checks as babies are starting to grasp things and stuff. And this is why we use the cardboard books, and that it's okay for them to put them in the mouth, because invariably what you'll see in the exam room as you give out these books is like, yeah, baby might grab the book and put it in the mouth, and then immediately the parents trying to get it out of the mouth. And it's like, no, 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 that's why this is this cardboard book. It doesn't probably taste that great, but it's totally okay to explore the book by putting it in their mouth because that is age appropriate as well. Um, and then, yeah, just incorporating books wherever. So, if you just need to put your kids in the book box and let them look at the books while you're trying to get something done, that's one thing you can do. The other thing that I've found really, really helpful, I had always wondered this back from, even when I did Reach Out and Read in residency, is why are we starting at 6 months? Why is this not starting at birth? So super excited that we are now starting at birth, because this just leads into those other ages in terms of, we're starting with the books really early. We talk about how between, the birth and kind of 6 months age range, we're really focusing on a lot of the bonding and the schedules. But then from 6 months through 5 years, a lot more can be incorporated in terms of libraries and resources, other places to get books, how to explore different books. And basically just reminding parents that at each of these well child checks, they'll get a new book. But focusing, I think, a lot more on, like I said, individualizing this to different parents and their families. And I think that's kind of the privilege that I have as a family practice doc is knowing my parents and my families and being able to say, yeah, with everything that's going on in your family, this might be a good option or this might be a good option. One of the things that I found helpful as well is like even incorporating books into car rides for kids. We have kids rear facing in their car seats, and these days there are a lot of screens and stuff, but maybe books are a better option in car rides. So there are all kinds of different ways that we can use the books. I think we are going right into, because I'm about halfway through my time, and I want to leave time for questions. So, birth to 4 months, there we go. I'm going to have you save questions till the end, though. Happy, happy, happy to answer them at the end. We're going to talk a little bit about using Reach Out and Read with children with special needs, because this is something that I think is sometimes overlooked. And there are different techniques that we sometimes use. The interesting thing for children with special needs is that as a pediatrician, a family practice physician, provider, there are some special needs that you'll know in your kiddos, right as they're born. But there are others that aren't going to be apparent until they become toddlers into their twos and threes, their early, threes and fours and stuff. So trying to figure some of that stuff out and actually using books to try and help figure that out can be super helpful. So again, all of Reach Out and Read is focused on, empowering families, enhancing reading experiences, supporting language development, cognitive growth, because we know that, all of this cognitive growth is occurring, from that birth time through 3 years. The brains just explode. But thinking about things like I'd mentioned, autism, we might not know anything is wrong with the kiddo until they're into their toddler years, that they might be fitting into that autism spectrum. Down syndrome, we might be aware of right at birth. Cerebral palsy, we could be knowledgeable right at birth. Other intellectual disabilities, as they're getting into more of that 4 or 5-year-old range, we might be figuring out that, yeah, they're struggling with learning their letters. So maybe there's dyslexia or something else at play. So then trying to use the children's strengths and how do we enhance that to then meet some of those challenges that they have. Um, the newborn to 6 month check is very much, again, a lot of the same stuff that I just talked about, because, like I said, some of these developmental challenges are not going to be apparent. Some of them are. But focusing then on, again, for a child with cerebral palsy or Down syndrome, is that cognitive awareness and the language and the sounds. And so making sure that parents are sharing books and different options for sharing books. Always providing suitable books. Again, this is true across the entire Reach Out and Read spectrum, whether it is a book with sensory features, whether it is a cardboard board book because they're going to put it in their mouth, whether or not it is language appropriate, age appropriate. Our whole philosophy of books are mirrors and windows, so making sure that we have diverse books that can show kids other people and families that are like themselves. And then using a lot of these, especially as the children are getting older in that 6 to 1 month or 6 month to 1 year, to look at, are there some potential developmental disabilities here, and can we use the book to help with them? So learning to turn pages is a fine motor skill that parents can help with their kids. Oh, can you turn the page of this, board book and stuff? That's actually working on fine motor. Can you hold up the book? Is working on gross motor. Working on the sounds and the language. So it's not even just using books necessarily just for the language, but you can also use them for the other developmental needs that these kiddos might need. Um, let's see here. Like I said, I'm going to go pretty quickly through these because a lot of it is similar, but you'll get all of these. Um, And then as the kiddos are getting older, again, like I said, you might be starting to notice in those toddler age groups, maybe this kid has autism spectrum disorder, maybe they have sensory processing issues. So then trying to look at, what is going to best help these kids in terms of what books are we picking? Are we encouraging children to explore books? Are we using more textile books for kids who are having sensory processing issues? Um, do we need to use more exaggerated tones and expressions for kids who are having potential issues with learning social interactions? So using all of these different techniques with our books to kind of address some of these things. Um, then again, as we get a little bit older, we might be noticing that there could be literacy issues, there could be math issues as kids are getting older. Even things like I've had a kid that we ended up diagnosing with red-green color blindness because of not being able to pick out different things in a book. And so using this book as part of our developmental screening in the clinic has been hugely helpful. And then being able to tailor that with certain books that we can get for these kiddos or suggest to parents so that they can better use books at home to again kind of approach the kids' needs to help them with that. And then part of it is to also focus on some of those um, again, the bonding with the kids, but focusing on what their strengths are too. And so for one of my kiddos that's on the spectrum, the rhyming is really, really important for them. And so using books with a lot of rhyming can really enhance a lot of the language skills. Don't be afraid to use the same book over and over and over as well. That was at one point, I think when my kids were like 3 and 5, I was going to go berserk if I had to read The Hippos Go Berserk one more time. But there is something about being able to provide books as a sense of comfort as well. And especially if you're having, and normal toddlers are going to break down, but those with special needs might have more breakdowns. And so being able to have books as a part of comfort so that, oh yeah, this is your favorite book, The Hippos Go Berserk. So we just start reading The Hippos Go Berserk, and that helps to provide that calming sensation because the child is so familiar with it. So that this can help with some of the bonding and calming effects as well. These are things that I think sometimes we don't think about as we're talking about books is, we're not just using them again for just the reading and the language. There's many other reasons we can use them. And I guess, one of the things as a reach out and read mom, I'm most proud of is like right now, and this has been happening since, again, my kids were stuck in, boxes with books all around them, was that my now 8-year-old, when he is having a hard time, he will head up to his room, grab his one blanket that he really likes, and tuck himself into the corner and read. He finds his books. And so when he is mad, when he is upset, I will find him in his room reading or looking at pictures or whatever, but it's gratifying to me as a mom that he has that outlet, and those are things that I think sometimes don't think about. So yeah, so a lot of books, thinking of other books, especially sensory books, Pat the Bunny, the little squishy books, a lot of repetitive text, Brown Bear, quiet space, free from distraction. So having that area where you have a great big old bean bag or a bunch of pillows and blankets and stuff to create a cozy place. And then really talking to parents about the kind of dialogic reading in terms of not necessarily using just the words on the page. And so I always use Goodnight Gorilla as an example of this. So the Goodnight Gorilla book doesn't have a lot of words, but my kids were always like intrigued with trying to find the banana on every page. Where is the banana? And so going through each page and trying to find the banana, asking, oh, where's the mouse on this page? What color is the banana? So using all of those different things to interact with the kid and do that back and forth learning. And then really paying attention to children's interests and cues. So again, one of my kiddos that's on the spectrum is obsessed with dinosaurs. I mean, what kid isn't obsessed with dinosaurs? But I mean, wow. So making sure that, yeah, the books are relatable in terms of dinosaurs and so forth. And so one of the things that I talk to mom about is, when you go to the library, focus on, the nonfiction section where there's going to be a lot more books on dinosaurs that are nonfiction than, even fiction. And so considering these other things for kiddos as well. Um, Pictures can be hugely helpful as well in terms of, as I talk about using books to create routines in a family, especially like books before beds and naps, is a lot of times having pictures of how things go throughout the day. So first we brush our teeth, and then we wash our face, and then we put on our PJs, and then we read a book, and then we go to bed. Those can be really helpful as well. Having check marks or dry erase boards where kids can check off those things, making sure that we're allowing the kids to pick out their books as well, can be really important. Because I'm going to run out of time here in a minute. I'm going to go through a couple of these other ones, but I wanted to show a couple of um, illustrations of so like with your child with Down syndrome is a lot of pointing to pictures, using the repetitive language, and having them again for working on fine motor skills and so forth, flip the pages, lift the flaps, doing those types of things. For a child with cerebral palsy that has is on a vent and has a trach, maybe reading doesn't look the same. Maybe they are in a wheelchair. Maybe you are in a chair and they're in their wheelchair. So providing different ways, again, with like I showed with one of the other pictures too, with grandpa on his back on the floor, it doesn't have to be just sitting in laps. So considering, is the child in a wheelchair, does the child need to be in a certain position? And then, in conclusion, once my son passes out with his book here, as he was reading himself to sleep for his nap, um, the idea is really empowering the families, right? Is that I think as physicians, our job is to kind of empower the families to have these interactions and to provide some of that guidance. The biggest thing I've taken away, having done this now for 20 plus years, is that I've learned so much from Reach Out and Read, in that it is not a book giveaway. It is not just about language. It is really working on a lot of those other interactions and how we can address those. And so for me, I get to use the book as a developmental screening tool in my clinic, which helps me then figure out what potential, problems my kids might be having developmental wise. Getting the parents to use these as ways to calm down the kids, ways to use it before a bedtime, way to work on gross motor, fine motor skills, all of these different skills. And then providing a lot of guidance in terms of, libraries and a lot, depending, I guess, and because I'm kind of lucky because I'm in the Madison area, we have libraries that will provide special reading times for kids with developmental disabilities or other needs. And so trying to find some of those resources or helping your parents navigate some of that can be hugely important as well. So I think that was my 20 minutes. Um,
Got three
I am
minutes.
I am happy to take questions. And again, there's a ton of information here. Some of the information is repetitive because it is, kind of the same things that we're doing over and over at different ages, just in slightly different ways. I believe my wonderful Reach Out and Read staff are going to send out all of these slides, and then this is being recorded. So if I talked a little too fast, you can always either rewatch this, or you'll have all of the slides available so that you can take a look at some of these techniques and so forth.
Awesome job.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing then so we can see everybody, and we'll take some questions. Doo, doo, doo.
And you can
Wow,
come
look at this turnout. That's awesome. Thank you, everybody. And feel free just to unmute and ask a question too if you have any.
Um, Wendy, I'm grateful that you emphasized again, like for parents who question, why does my child want to read the same story over and over again? And it's just funny. You just mentioned this, and I believe Depeche also talked about this on an interview on LinkedIn. But prior to reach out and read, like that would have been my frame of mind as well. I'm worried, like, why are we doing this? But to understand that we're providing calmness, that predictability, you have to think about, especially our toddlers, our children, when they're entering daycare, or Head Start and all of these changes. Also, I'm like, yeah, this is like this nice security blanket. And sometimes as adults, we have to get out of our own heads and like, this is so much more than just I need to show them different books and they have to build their vocabulary and have a certain number of words by the time they enter school. It's the social emotional connection.
Mhm. Exactly. And what's really interesting is a couple of things that I've changed in terms of how I talk about things with my parents and stuff too is, yeah, number one is books can be exactly that. Instead of it being a stuffy or a blanket or a pacifier, books can be that comforting thing. And then the other thing I talk about, especially with my moms who are nursing and breastfeeding, especially in the newborn period when, you're struggling to, feed yourself and get some sleep and take a shower some days, is that reading doesn't also have to be children's books. Like the only thing that would get me through some days was, reading, one of my own novels on a Kindle because I needed some self-care and self-care for me was reading. And so reading my novel out loud, the child as they're nursing is still getting that language stuff and still hearing my voice, but I'm not reading the hippos go berserk one more time. So some of these things have changed a little bit in terms of, as we learn more and more about this, and especially in those early years, how do we both take care of, and again, like I said, as family practice, I feel privileged because I'm taking care of both the mom and the child, and a lot of times the entire family. So yeah, that dad out in the waiting room is, and it totally was like, oh my God, you are totally the one that needs to be taking care of the baby and putting them down and doing the naps and stuff so that mom gets some sleep because yeah, she's still 6 weeks postpartum and doesn't get any sleep and is nursing and all that kind of stuff. And so getting the whole family involved can be hugely helpful as well. I saw Amber put in here, recommend how providers use the book during the newborn visit. Yes, right. So the book that I use is on my shelf over here. What is it? Hold on one second. All right. So my favorite book is I Love You Like Sunshine. Ooh, ah. Um, and one of the things that I talk about is um, using what's nice about this book is that there's so much more information in it about like building brains and recommendations about how you use the books. Yeah, this isn't going to work with my screen, but anyway, um, great book because as that parent who is sleep deprived and there for the newborn check, yeah, we're much more concerned about is the baby getting enough to eat and gaining weight appropriately and having normal wet and dirty diapers and so forth. But having them be able to take this book with them that has a lot of that information in it, I think is awesome so that when they do have that downtime and they're sitting there and are like, what can I do? It outlines for them what to do with this book. Let's see here. Was that answering the question? Yep. Yeah. Might not take be a place to take in everything. Yep. And then, yep, Wonky Donkey is great, especially for high energy or for repetitiveness, like that as well. Oh, and we're putting more links in here to the books, which is great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And that's the other thing. At my clinic, we have a lot of Spanish speaking families. And so having, yeah, both English and Spanish, or the majority of my books are bilingual, has been super helpful as well. We also have some parents that have really low literacy. And so talking to them about how it's not actually worrying about reading the words on the page and all of that, but it's more that interaction again and more of the dialogic reading. Show me the bunny. Where's the bunny? What color is the bunny? What does a bunny do? What's the bunny's favorite food? And so for those parents who are worried because, hey, I never did well in school and I don't like reading, talking to them about the importance of, just using the books in different ways. As kids get older, just because, we're not done at 5 years, as they get older, some of the other things to consider talking about are things like, um, I had a 10-year-old in here the other day, and the mom was like, "Oh, all he reads is graphic novels. It's terrible. He won't read anything else." And I'm like, "That's awesome. That's great. How many graphic novels have you read?" All of them. And yeah, so talking to parents about how reading what kids enjoy is hugely important to continue that love of reading. And so the other kid was like, "Oh yeah, all he does is play video games." "Oh yeah, what's your favorite video game?" "Minecraft." I'm like, "Great. So I need you to go to the library and pick out a book on Minecraft, and read that before your next visit." And so, focusing on what he enjoys, Minecraft, but in a book form to be able to read about it, um, is, ways to kind of work around some of these things as kids are, getting older and exerting more of their own independence and choices.
Thank you, Dr. Molaska. We have reached the end of our 30 minutes. So again, you should have slides. You can always reach out to Dr. Molaska. She's very accessible, probably too much to us, and I'm always grateful for the time that she does give us. But I'm going to quickly do our spin to see who wins, and then you'll see in the chat room a poll. So we'll see who our three winners are for today. Oh, first winner, it looks like it's Mary. That's a typo, but I think that's Mary. Okay. And second winner, Valerie. Oh, Wendy. Wendy. Okay. Ooh, and our last winner for today, Cindy. Okay. All right. So Mary, Wendy, and Cindy, you guys will be receiving a $25 Starbucks gift card to your work email or whatever email address you use to register for the Lunch and Learn. So thank you all. Please give us some feedback. We are back to Lunch and Learn webinars because we want to make sure you guys have everything you need to feel supported in delivering this program. Thank you all, and stay safe, be kind, love on our families, love on each other. Thank you. Have a great rest of the week.